The orders came, and we see someone named or she might be the one responsible for the team. She is with us from the headquarters of the brothers and is more famous for being in the security sector, under the leadership of Special Forces. She sends her team on a mission to an island called Cortez. When the team arrives there, one of them takes action, and the military appears, targeting the whole team. The objective was to acquire a certain capability. The reason this happened during this period is because she had an alternative plan. They were competing with another team that had already been sent to the island to carry out a mission. Let's go back in time 3 days before the mission to learn about the team. We meet someone named who had been in a high-security prison due to numerous charges. He was a mercenary soldier who had been trained in firearms since he was a child until he became a professional. As for why they made him the team leader, it was because no one else was better qualified. She threatened to cancel the mission if he wasn't leading it. Another member of the team, although they called him something different, wasn't entirely trusted. He worked for a corporate organization that didn't fully control the team. The mission involved sending 12 men to South America to deal with a large regime. Among them, there was someone named who was a key helper. Don't forget him. There's a project called the Sea Project that exists, and if someone gets their hands on it, they could destroy America and the whole world. They were accused of destroying anything related to the project, but no one saw it happen. There's a person named who was assisted, and we go back to the time when the team arrived on the island, where the tents were set up. The team is awake, and we also see someone whose name is and who is fully equipped. However, he heads back to the medical section, and everyone is trying to eat. But the nearby area is under attack with gunfire. The decision is made, but she's allowed to stay as she knows what's going on. She concentrated on him and kept following the team. It was clear that the stages they passed through were critical, and instead of focusing on the existing rules, he was sitting drinking jasmine tea with the resistance leaders, discussing what was on their minds. They discovered that the resistance was everywhere. She decided to restart with a new plan, and we find from the other side that they were asking about the Sea Project. They said that they discovered it 30 years ago in space, and when they decided to take control of the land and conduct experiments, they realized they could change and control the human race. The place they found was significant, and everyone felt the weight of it, so they immediately agreed to continue. They disagreed, and we see the amount of responsibility that was on her. After the people responded, the princess says to Lona that she is proud of her and her people because she did many things for America. She remembered that America shouldn't be underestimated, and when she said this, she told him what she would do about it. He responded stating that it wouldn't work, but then the team reached the club where they would stay for a month. They discussed what to do next, and before the military forces left, the army commander asked everyone to help arrest the American spies. They also planned to get out through the back door and surrender, and the team was aware of this. As they were in the car, they realized that the day they had been waiting for had arrived. They knew they had to escape, and the rest of the team with them had been preparing for years. They repeated their plan and waited. We then see Harley in the army confessing how many Americans were captured, but she was able to escape. The next day, after the torture, the team had a plan in place, and everything was almost complete. However, she didn't need her special team because everyone in the building where she had been imprisoned had already been involved in her plan. She knew that she could have intervened, but the situation was getting more complicated. They clarified the situation and stayed together with their team, planning ahead. They disabled the surveillance cameras and, due to the heavy rain, security couldn't detect them. They neutralized the guards and entered, making everything easier as they moved forward. They began planting explosives even in the Wild South area, while Drake continued with his mission. He placed more bombs and buried them underground. However, what they saw in the human laboratory was shocking. The place was full of people being experimented on, with some being controlled by the monsters. The purpose was to understand the creature's capabilities. At the same time, the military forces began moving as the weather turned cold, and the resistance took the opportunity to make their move. They entered the core area while the monsters moved around. They were surprised by the truth that the United States had been involved all along. The truth was that the U.S. had a secret agreement with alien entities, and the U.S. government had been conducting classified research, working with the military on legal studies in the country. They had made decisions to proceed, assigning someone to supervise all the experiments in the lab. However, due to the coup, the plan changed. The U.S. government then decided to intervene with the creatures, taking control of the situation and using their data to further their interests. The problems escalated, and it became known to the whole world, exposing the government's deceit. At that time, only Baker realized that the West would remain in control. Before he had followed the team's plan, they had agreed not to release any data from the site, and there was no gunfire. The plan was to avoid detection because the bombs exploded at that moment, destroying the entire place. In the wild, the beast knew what was happening, and Baker had to stay grounded. However, Baker understood that even in his travels, the spread of the crisis continued to grow, and the electrical systems were compromised. Despite this, he was able to control everything and reach the confrontation zone, where he realized that all the bombs had been detonated. The area was now flooded, and the place was overrun with destruction. Baker decided to act and get the sport group to move eastward, where the smaller teams with their forces would focus on some countries. These areas were covered in blood, and microbes spread across the land. Afterward, as the sport teams spread across the region, everything began to unravel quickly. The army sent reinforcements, but then suddenly the beast from the sea emerged, and a massive number of copies of the creatures appeared. He decided to take control of all the efforts and the remaining forces. No team could defend itself. He also repeated that the army had clearly targeted the city to seize control. Once the operations were initiated, everything was destroyed, and the mission began with the goal of reaching America. The island is international, and at the same time, the resistance finished off everyone in the original base to liberate the country. Despite his experience, he refused to let everyone be controlled by the male and had mercy on the team to help the people. The team repeated their efforts because they didn't want to hear any more words of resistance. However, one of the assistants attacked her, and the situation began to shift. In front of Saad, the plan was to secure everything, but the situation was becoming complicated. He had to defend himself against those who were controlling the area, and the spread of millions of infected people was rising in the city. The area became more organized, with the monsters entering the scene. The team issued a decision, and the resistance took control of the situation. The decision was either to conduct democratic elections or to impose control over the data. The information site became a critical target, and if the team failed, the mission would collapse. One person immediately took action, and a plane was sent out to address the issue. Later, the intelligence agencies discovered the value of their operations.